The story begins with a sad scene. An old man named Yong Hun on his deathbed. He is frail, coughing, and reflecting on his life. He thinks to himself, I am an earthling, an inhabitant of a civilized world. Currently, a little girl came to hand him a gift from her mother and kindly asks him to get well so he can make his special soap for them again. But the old man knows his time is up. It has been 50 long years since he tragically fell into this damned world, and now he is dying from a common cold. The story then flashes back 50 years to explain how he arrived in this world. At that time, he and his colleagues, including a man named Director Kim, were on a company trip. Suddenly, they were caught in a landslide. Instead of dying, they woke up in a completely different world. This new place was like something from novels, the type of Chinese fantasy he used to read. It was a world of magic and monsters, home to giant three-tailed foxes, two-headed red snakes, and even men who could fly. My bad, not men, I meant some absolute unit. They can fly and destroy worlds in an instant. Shortly after their arrival, same godlike beings descended from the sky. They were drawn to his co-workers, recognizing mythical talents in them. One by one, his colleagues were chosen and taken away to a new life in the heavens. However, both the protagonist and Director Kim were left behind because they had no special abilities. With no special powers, they had to do manual labor just to survive in this strange new land. About 6 months later, Director Kim grew tired of the difficult life. He used all his money to buy a cheap martial arts book. To everyone's surprise, he mastered it in just 3 months, becoming a skilled martial artist. Soon after, he began working for the local nation, continuously improving his skills until he became a powerful warrior. Eventually, he left to make a name for himself in Jianghu, the world of martial artists, leaving the protagonist completely alone. For a long time, the main character held out hope that a special power might awaken within him too, but 50 years passed and nothing ever happened. Returning to the end of his life, our old man recalls his struggles. He managed to learn the new language, build a small house, and even found a bit of success by making and selling soap using lye. Since this world was like medieval China, soap was a revolutionary product. However, his success was fleeting. Thieves stole his recipe, and their thugs violently forced him out of the market. After that, he was left with nothing. As he lays dying, he's filled with regret and sorrow. He wonders why he was never chosen, why he had to lose everything he worked so hard for. His last thought is a wish for just a little more power, believing it might have given him a chance at a better life. And then, he dies. But the story doesn't end there. He suddenly gasps for air, his eyes flying open. He is young again, wearing the same clothes he had on the day of the landslide. Around him are his co-workers, slowly waking up in a daze. He has gone back in time, right to the very beginning. It's at this moment he realizes he wasn't powerless after all. He possesses the incredible ability of regression. So like he's gonna respawn again and again with no powers. Now back on day 1, he thinks about how regression stories usually involve using future knowledge to get ahead. The only future knowledge he has, however, is how to make soap. Just then, a man, his section chief Jian Hun, yells at him. Hun furiously blames Yong Hun for the accident, accusing him of falling asleep at the wheel and nearly killing them all. In his past life, last time, Yong Hun had been so shocked and scared that he immediately apologized. But this time is different. He remembers that Yong Hun is the nephew of a company director who got his position through connections. More importantly, he recalls the truth. He was only tired because Yong Hun had forced him to do his work the night before, and Yong Hun was the one who was supposed to be driving in the first place. For 50 years, Yong Hun had lived a life of submission, always apologizing to bandits, martial artists, and corrupt officials who took advantage of him. But those years of hardship taught him a valuable lesson. While it's wise to be cautious around those who are truly powerful, you don't have to bow down to a bully you can handle. When Yong Hun gets aggressive and challenges him to a fight, Yong Hun doesn't back down. Everyone was shocked seeing them fighting. After being beaten countless times in his previous life, he has learned a thing or two about violence. With cold precision, he strikes Yong Hun, targeting his eyes to inflict maximum fear. He knows from bitter experience that after a beating like this, the only words his opponent will be able to say are, "I'm sorry," and Yong Hun said that. As Yong Hun lies on the ground, bleeding and terrified, Yong Hun stands over him. He reflects that he may not have the mythical talents of his co-workers or the genius for martial arts, but he now has something far more important, the ability to change his own fate. His other colleagues are in shock, questioning how he could be so violent. Director Kim, a man Yong Hun knows will become incredibly powerful, steps in. He tells Yong Hun that while Yong Hun was out of line, Yong Hun's reaction was too extreme and that he should apologize. Yong Hun, thinking ahead, realizes he can't afford to alienate Director Kim. His plan is to support Kim and hopefully reap some benefits in the future. So, putting his pride aside, he walks over to the whimpering Yong Hun and offers a formal apology. With the conflict resolved for the moment, Director Kim suggests they try to find a village. Yong Hun, however, knows this is a world where common sense from Earth doesn't apply. He explains to us that they are in a forest called Ascension Path, a place within the Miram, a world ruled by martial artists and immortals where the strong prey on the weak. There are no villages for miles. As the sun begins to set, he advises them to find a safe place to shelter for the night. Someone brings up the idea of finding their car, remembering all the supplies they packed for the workshop. Yun knows the car is gone for good, but he also knows they won't just take his word for it. To avoid a pointless argument, he cleverly suggests they split into two teams, one to look for shelter, which he is going to be in, and the other to search for the car. Later that night, the group is gathered around a warm fire inside a cave that Yun found. The team that searched for the car came back empty-handed, completely baffled by their situation. Thanks to Yun's foresight, he has also gathered some edible nuts. His colleagues, impressed by his resourcefulness, praise him for being so dependable. It's a peaceful, almost happy moment, like a camping trip. Yun savors it, knowing it will be the last time they will ever laugh together like this. Because in the morning, their peaceful time is shattered by the arrival of a monstrous three-tailed fox. It introduces itself as the Lord of the Forest. While everyone else freezes in terror, Yun, remembering the fatal encounter from his past life, immediately drops to his knees and shows profound respect. The others, when they came out, were shocked and started screaming. The fox is surprised by his respectful demeanor, but is still angry at the others for trespassing. In his previous life, their panic and screams had enraged the fox, leading the Fix to eat everyone's limbs. This time, because of Yun's quick thinking, the fox decides to be merciful. It won't take all of their limbs, but it demands a price for entering its territory. One of them must offer an arm. After thinking for some time, Yun volunteers. He has already prepared for this, having found a special herb to reduce the pain. More importantly, he knows that in 2 days, powerful cultivators will arrive and will likely be able to heal his arm. The fox is pleased with his courage and, in a twisted act of kindness, promises to make it as quick as possible. The beast bites down, severing his arm in a gruesome spray of blood. The pain is immense, far worse than he expected, even with the herb. The fox casually eats his arm, commenting that it tastes worse than it expected due to the impurities in his veins. As a reward for his sacrifice, the fox grants them permission to stay in its territory for 7 days and assures Yun that its divine presence will keep him from dying in the wild. Yun stumbles back to the cave, weak from blood loss. To keep his regression a secret, he tells a white lie. He claims he met the fox earlier that morning and negotiated this deal to ensure their safety. He then collapses, pretending to fall into a deep sleep. While he is supposedly unconscious, his colleagues begin to talk outside. One of them feels guilty, but Yong Hun, ever the snake, sees an opportunity. He argues that since Yun is already injured and weakened, he won't survive long anyway. He coldly suggests that they should learn everything they can from Yun over the next week, and then, when the fox demands another sacrifice, offer him up again. But unbeknownst to them, Yun was hearing everything. He was eavesdropping on his colleagues, everyone discussing whether to sacrifice him again in a week or not. The betrayal stings, and he contemplates killing Yong Hun on the spot with a big stone. With the combat knowledge he gained over 50 years in his previous life, he knows he could easily do it, even with just one arm. However, he stops himself. Killing Yong Hun now would only complicate his relationship with Director Kim, the man he plans to use to secure his own future. For now, he decides to play along. Outside, one of his colleagues warns Yong Hun to keep his mouth shut if he doesn't want his other ankle broken. He then inwardly reassures himself that his colleagues are some good people who are scared and confused. The next day, the group encounters another of the forest's monstrous inhabitants, a giant, two-headed snake. Unlike the fox, this creature only demands a small amount of blood as a toll. This time, one of the other men, Chief O, steps forward to make the sacrifice. The snake takes a taste and immediately spits it out in disgust, complaining that it's the worst human blood it has ever had, likely due to a modern diet of nicotine and cholesterol. Later, Yun decides it's time for a little payback. He orders Yong Hun to come with him to gather herbs, luring him with the false promise of teaching him survival skills and explaining to him that he's going to sacrifice himself again so someone has to know about some stuff. Yun proceeds to work him to the bone, forcing him to dig up roots and constantly yelling at him for picking the wrong berries or cherries. It's a clear reversal of the bullying he endured as a new employee. During their work, Yong Hun unearths a massive root that looks like ginseng. Yong Hun, with his knowledge of this world, identifies it as a yellow bamboo root. While not useful for powerful cultivators, it's an incredibly valuable herb for martial artists that can increase their internal energy, or chi. He realizes this will be the perfect gift to get on Director Kim's good side and has Yong Hun gather several more. Just as the sun begins to set, the sky erupts in light and powerful beings descend. This is the moment Yun knew was coming. As the cultivators draw near, 3 of his colleagues cry out in pain as their latent spiritual roots, their hidden potential for cultivation, are violently awakened. The cultivators, named Buko and Hyogwak, dismissed others as ordinary mortals. They are only interested in the 3 who show potential. A bidding war begins. The cultivators identify the unique talents within the chosen 3. One has the body of heavenly golden thunder, another a ghostly yin transforming a mortal root, and the third a unique holy body. They are from different powerful sects, the Azure Heaven Creation sect and the Black Ghost Valley. Try to recruit them, promising them immortality, fame, and the power to overturn the heavens. Overwhelmed but seeing a way out of their desperate situation, the chosen colleagues agree to go. They didn't agree to anything, they were just kidnapped. As they are about to depart, one of the cultivators notices Yun Hun's severed arm. Remarking that he's got guts for a mere mortal, the cultivator casually heals the wound with a flash of light. He also informs them that they've cleared the forest of all monsters, making it safe for the next 10 years. Then, without a second thought for others they are leaving behind, they ascend into the sky, ignoring the desperate shouts of Director Kim. Once again, Yun and Director Kim are abandoned with 2 more colleagues. While Kim is furious and panicking, Yun is calm. This is exactly what happened in his past life. At least this time, his arm has been healed. The following day, their situation grows worse. One of the women left behind, Deputy Manager Oh, has fallen gravely ill. As they worry about what to do, a mysterious and powerful figure appears at the mouth of their cave. This well-dressed newcomer introduces herself as the Sea Dragon King, Seo Huel, a name strikingly similar to Seo Hunyun's. But I promise you this guy is also a bad one. He explains that she was drawn to the area to investigate the cause of a massive storm, which he believes was unconsciously created by the sick deputy manager. Oh, he finds it incredibly strange that an ordinary woman with no cultivation energy could possess such power. Yun explains their bizarre situation. They fell into this world, their talented colleagues were taken away by powerful cultivators, and now he has appeared. Seo Huel listens and connects the pieces. He reveals that they are in a special place called the Ascension Path, a gateway to a higher realm that only opens once every 1,000 years. This is why so many powerful beings are flocking to the area, all hoping to ascend. Director Kim is confused. If the cultivators are leaving this world, how could they take his colleagues to join their sects? Seo Huel explains that high-level cultivators have techniques to shrink entire structures, even their sect headquarters, into small magical items. He reveals a pearl-like object from his sleeve, stating that it contains one of his undersea castles and 1,900 dormant sea dragons, all waiting for the gate to open. Seeing the immense potential in Deputy Manager Seo Huel decides to take her as one of her own. He prepares to give the sick woman his blood to heal her and bind her to the Sea Dragon clan. When Director Kim tries to stop him, he was suddenly blasted by an invisible force, clutching his chest in pain. Seo Huel gives him a cold warning. It is dangerous for a mortal to ask so many questions from a being like him. He says that he only answered because he was feeling generous. Most cultivators would have killed him for his insolence. With that, he transforms into a majestic blue dragon and flies away with Miss O. Now the only ones who are left are Director Kim, Yun, and another woman. Director Kim is furious, realizing their colleagues weren't recruited but essentially kidnapped. Duh. The last remaining woman, Deputy Manager Kang, is terrified. She turns to Yun, begging him not to get taken away too, as she knows she can't survive alone. Just as Yun tries to comfort her, their time runs out. Manager Kang starts feeling a sharp pain in her head, and another powerful being, a sinister-looking old man, arrives on a robotic loin-looking thing. He immediately senses Deputy Manager Kang's latent power and declares his intention to take her as his disciple. When Director Kim tries to protect her, the old man casually swats him aside. Yun reacts instantly, saving Director Kim and taking the blow himself, though he is saved from serious injury. The old man offers to awaken the woman's spiritual root and make her a cultivator, but she hesitates, unwilling to abandon her 2 remaining companions. The old man scoffs at her worldly attachments and decides to sever them for her. At first he tries to kill them, but then when she agrees, he opens a dimensional rift, intending to send Yun and Director Kim to a random location in the mortal world. As they are pulled into the vortex, Yun makes a last-second grab for the precious yellow bamboo roots he had gathered. So later, he finds himself in the middle of a crowded, bustling city street. The sights, the sounds, the path beneath his feet, it's all eerily familiar. He has been transported back to Sokyung City, the capital of Yangwo, the very place where he had scraped by for 50 long years in his previous life. Landing in the bustling streets of Seokyung City, Seo Yun and Director Kim are left dazed and confused. It's a jarring return to a semblance of civilization after the chaos of the Ascension Path. Director Kim, now completely out of his element, feels like he's in a dream, while Yun reflects on his own past as a powerless herb gatherer in this very city. It doesn't take long for them to attract unwanted attention. The locals start whispering and pointing at their modern, torn clothes. Director Kim, unable to understand the language, becomes anxious. Yun, however, calmly reassures him. He pretends that it's Chinese and he knows a little Chinese, but in reality, he understands every word. He remembers the 2 grueling months he spent with beggars in his past life, enduring constant mockery just to learn the language. This time, there's no need for that. With his future knowledge as his guide, Yun leads them to an herb shop. He presents the yellow bamboo roots he managed to bring with them. The shopkeeper's eyes go wide with astonishment. He recognizes the herbs as being at least 800 years old and offers them 15 silver, a fortune beyond anything Yun had ever possessed in his previous life. Flush with cash, their first order of business is to blend in. They buy new, traditional-style clothes and then purchase a large house. Yun also bribes some officials to secure their new identities. By the end of the day, their massive fortune had dwindled to a single silver. In their new home, they agree to drop the formal titles and call each other by their names, Seo Yun and Kim Yong Hun. That night, Yun lays out his plan. He knows that their money won't last forever. Simply starting a business and making a living isn't enough for him this time. He wants to dream bigger. He reminds Yong Hun that they are in the Murum, a world of martial arts, and suggests they should learn how to defend themselves. This is all part of his grand strategy. Yun knows that Yong Hun is a martial arts prodigy who, in the previous timeline, became a top-tier warrior starting with a third-rate manual. Yun's plan is to give this genius the best possible start, providing him with advanced training from the very beginning. He believes this could make Yong Hun the greatest swordsman in the land, 30 years ahead of schedule. Using his knowledge from last time, Yun explains the power dynamics of the city, detailing the 7 major sects. Yong Hun, a natural-born fighter, is immediately drawn to the demon-slaying sect, which is famous for its sword and blade techniques. And when Yong Hun asks where he got this info from, he just tells him that he heard it on the way from people. 3 months later, they arrive at the sect's headquarters. Their request to join is initially dismissed, with the guards telling them that Yong Hun is too old to begin training. However, a tray piled high with money quickly changes their tune. Inside, their offer is underwhelming. For their hefty donation, the sect will only accept one of them as an external disciple with no special privileges. Before the hot-headed Yong Hun can protest, Yun accepts the deal. He tells the disappointed Yong Hun that he will be the one to learn. Yun selflessly claims he's never been good at sports and will instead use their remaining funds to start a business and support Yong Hun from the sidelines. With a heartfelt speech, he encourages his friend to believe in himself and focus on becoming strong. The story then jumps forward 7 months. The demon-slaying sect is in a state of utter chaos. During an internal competition, a new, unknown disciple has single-handedly defeated all of the sect's most promising students, leaving the instructors and elders in disbelief. The outsider from nowhere who has shaken the entire sect to its core is, of course, Kim Yong Hun. His genius is undeniable. Mastering martial arts is a long and difficult journey. A martial artist must first understand a technique's true meaning to advance from third-rate to second-rate, and the effort required to reach the prestigious first-rate level is even greater. However, a true genius can defy this process, seeming to laugh at the very concepts of time and effort as they speed through the stages. Kim Yong Hun is one such genius. In an astonishing 7 months, Yong Hun not only became a first-rate warrior but also completely mastered the demon-slaying sect's ultimate technique. Having an outsider so thoroughly and quickly surpass their own disciples was a deep humiliation for the sect. Furious and suspecting him of being a spy, the sect's elders ordered him to be captured. Both Yong Hun and Yun are right now in their house while sect people are eavesdropping on them. While Yun feigns worry, Yong Hun is remarkably calm. He isn't concerned about the sect's punishment, he is entirely focused on his martial arts, feeling that he is on the verge of another breakthrough. He is about to reach martial peak, the highest level of power that most warriors, even sect leaders, can only dream of. Yun is stunned. His plan to accelerate Yong Hun's growth is working far better than he ever imagined. He is on track to become the greatest swordsman not in 30 years, but possibly 40. Just 7 days later, Yong Hun shatters all expectations. Meditating, he successfully breaks through the barrier, manifesting the Flower of Qi, a legendary sign that he has become a peak martial artist. He now possesses a level of power that makes him an equal to the sect leader himself. His timing couldn't be better. The sect people burst in, declaring the sect leader's verdict: Yong Hun's Qi core is to be destroyed for stealing their techniques. As proof, they cite the fact that he and Yun were heard speaking a strange, code-like language which was actually just Korean. They punched Yun, but their threats are now meaningless. When they try to restrain him, Yong Hun effortlessly defeats them all. Now as a free master, Yong Hun decides to leave the sect and continue his training by visiting other martial arts schools. Yong Hun agrees to accompany him, suggesting they head to the infamous Venom Dragon sect, one of the unorthodox sects. They part ways temporarily, with a plan to meet there later, because Yong Hun had something to do with the current sect leader. Later, on the way, Yun watches Yong Hun ahead, all energetic. Yun reflects on how this violent world is changing them. After this, Yong Hun's path becomes one of conquest. He takes over the Venom Dragon sect and, over the next 2 years, travels across the land, defeating every major sect. By the 3rd year, he is universally recognized as the greatest martial artist under the heavens. He uses this incredible fame and power to unite the fractured martial world, creating the Martial Alliance. 7 years later, Yong Hun and Yun have become as close as brothers. Yong Hun even develops a unique martial art, the Severing Mountain Sword, tailored specifically for Yun in the hopes that he too can one day reach martial peak. There was just one problem. Yun had absolutely zero talent for martial arts. Despite being personally tutored by the most powerful man in the world, it took him an entire year just to reach the lowly 3rd-rate level. He eventually gives up on fighting and finds he has a knack for medicine instead. A decade after their arrival in this world, Yun witnesses something incredible. Yong Hun achieves a legendary state that transcends martial arts, a level known as 5 energies converge to the origin. His body undergoes a miraculous transformation, a skeletal restructuring, which makes him younger, stronger, and seemingly on the path to true immortality. Kim Yong Hun, now looking even younger than his friend Yun, reveling in his newfound power. His transformation is complete, and he feels invincible. He tells Yun Yun that he plans to step down as the leader of the Miram Alliance, the organization he had built, but is struggling to find a worthy successor. He complains that there are no truly talented martial artists, to which Yun Hun jokingly replies that it's because Yong Hun's own genius is so abnormal that everyone else pales in comparison. The story then jumps forward in time. 35 years have passed since Yun Yun began this new life, and he is now an old man in his mid-60s. He reflects on what happened after Yong Hun's transformation. A year after his breakthrough, Yong Hun retired from the Alliance to wander the world. Yun Yun, however, had to remain as the Alliance's chief strategist for many more years to ensure its stability. Now finally retired himself, Yun Yun feels a deep sense of loneliness in his large, empty home. Yong Hun didn't even attend his retirement ceremony. Just as he is lost in these melancholy thoughts, a disheveled and weary-looking Yong Hun suddenly appears in his garden. Yong Hun finally explains his long absence. He has spent the last few decades hunting the powerful cultivators who abducted their colleagues. He discovered that these cultivators secretly control the kingdom from the shadows. When the Miram Alliance grew too powerful, they began to interfere, which is the real reason Yong Hun had to step down, to protect the organization he had built. He describes a long and frustrating struggle. The cultivators were so powerful that they often considered him beneath their notice and would simply fly away. 5 years ago, he finally managed to engage one in a proper fight. Yong Hun says that he won, but the truth is sobering. The cultivator, a being at the Chi condensation realm, had agreed that if Yong Hun, the greatest martial artist in the world, could so much as scratch him, it would count as a victory. After a life-or-death battle, all Yong Hun could manage was a single, tiny scratch on the cultivator's fingertip. The most devastating revelation was yet to come. The cultivator told him that the Chi condensation realm was the second lowest level in the world of cultivation, equivalent to a mere second-rate warrior. Yong Hun realized the horrifying truth. The gap between the pinnacle of martial arts and the bottom of cultivation was impossibly vast. He had been nothing but a frog in a well. He then tells Yun Yun about a fight he had with that same cultivator just that day. This time, he managed to cut the cultivator's wrist, but the wound was healed instantly with a simple talisman. At that moment, Yong Hun knew he had reached the absolute limit of his martial path. His journey was over. He had come to say goodbye. The cultivator, impressed by Yong Hun's indomitable will, offered him a chance to start a new journey. He explained that by reaching the legendary state of 5 energies converged to the origin, Yong Hun had essentially forged the spiritual roots that cultivators are born with. He was invited to join the cultivators' sect and begin a new life as an immortal. For the final farewell, Yong Hun gives Yun Hun a book containing all of his life's research martial arts. He developed in the hope of one day surpassing cultivators, and then vanishes, leaving Yun Hun truly alone. Time passes once more, and we see Yun Yun on his deathbed again. It has been 50 years since he came to this world. In a cruel twist of fate, he is dying from a common cold again, just as he did in his first life. He reflects that despite living a fierce and successful life, unifying the martial world and gaining immense wealth and honor, he could not escape his destiny. He dies on the exact same day, from the exact same cause. His final thought is a powerful wave of regret. If he had struggled just a little bit more, could he and Yong Hun have reached for the heavens together? And that was his first regression. Seo Yun Yun wakes up in the same forest as before. He is young, full of energy, and back at the very beginning. This is his second regression. Just as he is processing this, an angry Jeon Myung Hun charges at him, blaming him for the accident. But this time, with 2 lifetimes of experience, Yun Yun effortlessly dodges the clumsy attack. As Myung Hun sputters in disbelief, Yong Hun grapples with the terrifying implications of his power. Regression isn't a gift, it's a curse. He is trapped in a loop, forced to relive his life over and over, losing everyone he ever cared about with each reset. The Kim Yong Hun who became his brother no longer exists. The people around him are just strangers with familiar faces. This time, there's no rage, no desire for revenge, just a cold, weary resignation. He calmly and logically dismantles Myung Hun's accusations, pointing out that he was forced to drive while exhausted and that a landslide was unavoidable. His detached demeanor leaves Myung Hun speechless. Later, at night, Yun Yun's new goal is clear. He must break this cycle. He realizes that the ascension gate is the key. It's the reason they were brought to this world, and it might be his only way back home. To even have a chance of using it, he knows he can't remain a mere mortal. He needs to become a cultivator, just like Yong Hun did. He needs to get stronger. With this new resolve, he knows what he needs to do. He finds the yellow bamboo roots and, using the dragon vein chi method that Yong Hun created for him in his past life, he forces the herb's powerful energy into his body, clearing his blocked chi pathways. His next step is to reclaim his fighting skills. He makes a sturdy tree branch and begins to practice the Severing Mountain Sword, the technique Yong Hun had designed for him. Although he was never a genius, 50 years of life or death struggles have given him a solid foundation. As he practices, he is interrupted by an awestruck director Kim Yong Hun, who is stunned to see him slice through a tree with a wooden stick. Yun Yun, seeing the familiar spark of interest in his friend's eyes, offers to teach him the technique. He knows this is the first step in guiding this timeline's Yong Hun toward his destiny. However, their training session is cut short by a familiar and unwelcome presence. The monstrous three-tailed fox, the Lord of the Forest, has arrived, angry at the filthy humans playing around in his territory. Yong Hun had been so focused on his new plan that he had completely forgotten about this initial, deadly encounter. He knows he is still weak, just as he was in his first 2 lives. He reflects on his past failures. Even after living for over 100 years in his second life, he was barely a second-rate warrior. But this time, he tore his arm by himself and gave it to the three-tailed fox. Everyone was shocked by what he just did. Compared to the geniuses of this world, his talent is trash. But as the fox leaves, he makes a silent vow. He will not give up. One day, he will become stronger than this monster. Just like in his first regression, the fox spares the group after taking its tribute. Afterwards, while his colleagues panic, Yong Hun finds a quiet spot and begins to relentlessly practice his swordsmanship. He doesn't eat, sleep, or rest. A few days later, the cultivators arrive and heal his arm, but he barely acknowledges them, only stopping his training long enough for them to take his colleagues away. The Sea Dragon King, Seo Whale, appears as scheduled. This time, Yong Hun is much more direct. He asks her why he wants to take Miss O, an ordinary human. Seo Whale is surprised by his knowledge, but explains that he can awaken the spiritual roots within the woman. Yong Hun then boldly asks if he can do the same for him and the others, hinting that they might also possess hidden talents. Seo Whale is amused by his audacity, but gives him a stern warning about the dangers of speaking so carelessly to a powerful being. Then he leaves with Miss O. Shortly after, the final cultivator arrives to take away the last of his colleagues. This time, Yong Hun pays close attention. The cultivator mentions a precious elixir that can open spiritual channels, allowing even an ordinary person to become immortal. This is a revelation for Yong Hun. There's another way to become a cultivator besides reaching Martial Peak. As the cultivator teleports them away, Yong Hun is once again thrown into a dimensional rift. He lands in an unfamiliar area on a tree and quickly finds Yong Hun. He wakes him up and explains everything to Speed on their situation, and, over the next few days, they settle quickly. Yong Hun teaches Yong Hun the language and the severing pulse blade technique, a modified version of the art Yong Hun himself gave to him in past life. Yong Hun's genius is as staggering as ever. In just 3 months, he reaches the Three Blossoms Crown Peak, a level that puts him among the top-tier martial artists. He is now far more powerful than Yong Hun, who, at best, can only hope to become a first-rate warrior in this lifetime. But something has changed within Yong Hun. He realizes that the man in front of him is not the brother he knew. The Yong Hun he served for over decades is gone. Mentally, Yong Hun is now an old man, and he feels a vast gulf between himself and this new, younger version of his friend. He decides he must walk his own path. He tells Yong Hun that they must go their separate ways. He explains us his reasoning. In every timeline, Yong Hun rises to become the greatest martial artist, only to be crushed by the impossibly powerful cultivators. Yong Hun can't bear to watch his friends suffer that fate again. He wants to travel alone and find his own way to become strong enough to change their destiny. Yong Hun is heartbroken at the thought of being abandoned, but Yong Hun reassures him, promising that they will meet at their house once every 2 years. With that, Yong Hun leaves, his heart set on a new, solitary journey. He arrives at the headquarters of a powerful martial arts clan and, with cold determination, challenges them to a duel. At first they laughed at him, but later they were baffled as he cut their weapon with his sword. Seo Yong Hun finally inside the headquarters of the 8 Stronghold Pavilion to issue his challenge. He is granted a duel with the sect leader himself. The leader is initially dismissive of Yong Hun's youth, but he quickly recognizes the extraordinary power simmering beneath the surface. The duel begins, and it is a masterful display of skill. The sect leader, a whip specialist, is shocked when Yong Hun, a swordsman, easily parries his complex attacks. He realizes that Yong Hun has already achieved sword-body unity, a state of mastery that puts him at the late first-rate level, a genius of the highest order. As the fight continues, Yong Hun analyzes his opponent's techniques, learning and adapting with every exchange. The sect leader is deeply impressed, calling him a genius. But for Yong Hun, the title feels hollow. He knows his skill isn't the result of innate talent, but of countless lifetimes of suffering and training. He thinks of his regression as both a unique ability and a hard-won opportunity. He has decided that if he is to be trapped in this cycle, he will become a genius. With a surge of determination, Yong Hun unleashes the full power of the Severing Mountain Sword, now renamed the Duan Yu Sword Art. The sect leader is completely overwhelmed by the monstrous and ever-evolving sword art. With each move, Yong Hun's speed and power increase exponentially. With the final, 12th move, he shatters the sect leader's defense and wins the duel. He gracefully accepts his victory and departs, leaving the members in stunned silence. As he leaves, Yong Hun decides his next challenge will be against one of the demonic sects, knowing that their ruthless nature will push him even further. His goal is now singular and absolute, to reach the peak realm in this life. Over the next few months, Yong Hun travels across the region, challenging 4 more sects. He wins some duels and loses others, but with each fight, he grows stronger. His final stop is the headquarters of the Huadongpa, a notorious demonic sect. After defeating their champion, he is brought before the sect's elders. However, instead of honoring his victory, the elders surround him. Their leader reveals their sinister plan. They will now fight him, 10 against 1. They intend to injure him in the duel and then let him die later from an infection, allowing them to claim he was cared for by the sect while covering up their murder. Yun is unfazed. He had expected this kind of treachery from a demonic sect. He realizes that they are even more depraved than he anticipated and prepares for the fight of his life. He questions if killing them will tarnish his reputation, and after a moment's thought, he accepts their absurd duel and declares, "Let's start a real fight." The scene then shifts to a bustling restaurant where patrons are gossiping. They talk about a young master who foolishly went to duel the Hoadongpa, which they describe as an illegal organization no different from a den of bandits. The consensus is that the young man, despite his talent, was rash and is surely dead by now. Just then, the restaurant door opens and Yun, covered in blood, stumbles in, shocking everyone into silence. And yeah, they were just talking about him. He calmly ignores the stunned onlookers and orders a bowl of noodles. As he waits, he flashes back to the brutal fight. He recalls how he nearly died, facing overwhelming odds against opponents who had cowardly poisoned their weapons. He thinks to himself that the only reason he survived was because he had learned top-tier medicine in his past as a strategist for the Miram Alliance. His flashback continues, revealing more of the desperate battle. He had to take antidote pills and stimulants he prepared beforehand to stay alive. Even after defeating the main fighters, the sect leader sent a final wave of soldiers with spears and arrows after him. He had no choice but to fight like a wild animal just to survive. Back in the present, he finishes his noodles. He recalls making sure to cripple any survivors so they couldn't come back for revenge. He's still feeling the effects of the stimulants he took, leaving him too tense to sleep. Without a moment's rest, he decides his next step is to challenge another, more orthodox sect. He pays for his meal and leaves. News of his incredible feat spreads like wildfire, and the people of Seogyung City, buzzing with excitement, give him a fitting nickname, the Mad Master. He is now also known as the Infinite Fighting Monster. He is painfully aware that he possesses no natural talent for martial arts. Because of this, he believes the only way to reach the pinnacle of power is to constantly throw himself into life-or-death battles. He feels that for a dullard like him, embracing madness is the only way to close the gap with a true genius. For the next 5 years, he travels the land, dueling anyone and everyone, regardless of whether they belong to righteous or evil sects. 5 years later, we see him in the middle of another intense fight. He unleashes a powerful technique, the mountain-breaking sword art, noting how much of a mental strain it is to even manifest it briefly. He pushes himself to the limit because his opponent is no ordinary fighter. Despite his powerful attack, his sword energy is shattered in a single blow. His opponent is revealed to be the legendary Yong Hun, yup, the greatest under heaven. Yong Hun compliments Seo Enhun on his progress but still calls him clumsy. Seeing Yong Hun's immense power, Seo Yun can only think about how miserable it is to be born without talent. He notes that, while he has struggled for 5 years just to get this far, Yong Hun has transformed into a completely different person in the same amount of time. After their duel, the two sit down to talk. Yong Hun mentions that he has grown so powerful that no one in the entire country of Yongguk can even challenge him anymore. Because of this, he plans to establish his own sect and offers his friend Seo Yun a high-ranking position. Seo Yun immediately refuses. He thinks to himself that if he accepts, he'll just end up being overworked as a strategist or vice leader, just like in his previous life. He knows that with his lack of talent, he cannot afford to waste a single second on anything other than training. He needs real combat experience to get stronger, not a comfortable position. So, he decides to continue on his lonely path of endless duels, choosing to watch his friends rise from a distance. The story then jumps forward another 20 years. An older, weary-looking Seo Yun stands in front of Yong Hun in the rain. After all those years of relentless fighting and pushing himself beyond his limits, he has finally come to a heartbreaking conclusion. His talent is one that has been abandoned by the heavens. Seo Yun sits with his old friend Yong Hun, expressing his deep frustration. Despite decades of relentless training, he still hasn't been able to break through to the next realm of power. His understanding of sword ki surpasses everyone else's, yet he can't last more than 3 moves against the true high-rank masters. He can only maintain his powerful sword ki for half a day before his limit is reached. He bitterly refers to this wall he cannot overcome as a talent that the heavens have thrown away. Yong Hun listens patiently and then hands him a thick bundle of papers. It's a record of the insights Yong Hun gained from his dangerous encounters with powerful beings known as cultivators. He explains that escaping from these cultivators, whom he describes as natural disasters in human form, gave him a profound understanding of martial arts. Yun accepts the precious text, promising to pass it down to future generations. In return, he offers Seo Yun a crucial piece of advice to help him reach the peak realm. He tells him that he must learn to constantly be aware of and mentally imprint every single detail of his surroundings, not just during a fight, but at all times. Seo Yun is overwhelmed by the suggestion. He explains that just maintaining his sword ki already feels like his head is going to explode. Adding constant spatial awareness on top of that seems impossible. However, trusting the wisdom of his friend, the strongest martial artist under heaven, he decides to commit to this grueling training. For the next 5 years, he practices relentlessly, constantly maintaining his sword ki while forcing himself to be aware of everything around him. The effort leaves him in a perpetual state of dizziness. His senses sharpened to an incredible degree, allowing him to perceive not just visual but also auditory information with perfect clarity. By this point, he has already challenged every major and minor sect in the Yan Kingdom, so he now makes a living as a bounty hunter, taking down bandits. He constantly worries if he can survive against ruthless enemies while in his dizzy state, but he presses on, determined to walk the path he has chosen. 15 years later, an older, gray-haired Seo Yun-hyun meets with Yong Hun again. It has now been 45 years since this life. His endless training has paid off in one way. All 5 of his senses have been honed to a state of refined perfection, but his ultimate goal remains out of reach. In a moment of pure frustration, he slams his fist on the table, shouting that he still hasn't become a master at the peak. Yong Hun recounts a recent battle where 2 cultivators ambushed him. He barely escaped with his life, though he managed to land a small cut on one of them. The experience leaves him feeling hopeless. He begins to believe that perhaps this state is the absolute limit for a martial artist, and that no matter how strong one becomes, they can never truly defeat a cultivator. He sees a sad reflection of himself in his tea and Yong Hun's sad face. One was blessed with heavenly talent, the other cursed with none, yet both seem to have hit a wall they cannot surpass. Later they decided to spar, and as expected, Eun-hyun loses. Baffled and frustrated, he asks Yong Hun why he can't reach the peak. Kim Yong Hun is just as confused, admitting that based on his experience and skill, Seo Eun-hyun should have become a peak master long ago. He theorizes that the only thing missing is a trigger, a moment of pure desperation or a powerful driving force that could push him beyond the limits of his talent. This suggestion sends Seo Eun-hyun into a rage. He explodes, screaming that his entire life has been a desperate struggle. For over 50 years, he has dedicated every waking moment to the sword, constantly putting his life on the line and pushing his body to its absolute limits. He can't imagine what more desperation he could possibly need. In a heartbreaking display of despair, he yells at the heavens, demanding to know why the next realm remains hidden from him after a lifetime of sacrifice. Defeated, Seo Eun-hyun feels he will never grasp the next realm. Seeing his friend's pain, Yong Hun offers him a new martial art he created specifically to help compensate for his shortcomings. He then leaves, disappearing once again. 5 more years pass. It has now been 50 years since Seo Yun-hyun began this life. Old and frail, he feels his death approaching. He assumes his friend Kim Yong-hun has also passed away, and he resigns himself to the fact that this was the fate the heavens had chosen for them both, to struggle endlessly but never reach their ultimate goal. Just as he is lost in his somber thoughts, a voice calls his beliefs bullshit. A heavily wounded Kim Yong-hun appears before him, coughing up blood. Seo Yun-hyun is shocked to see his friend in such a state and rushes to get his medical supplies. But Kim Yong-hun stops him and takes him in the air, pointing frantically behind them, revealing that a powerful cultivator is chasing him. With a wild, triumphant laugh, Yong-hun reveals the truth. His grievous injuries were the price he paid for blasting off the arm of a judgment stage cultivator. In that life-or-death moment, he finally saw it, the realm beyond the limits of martial arts, a place no other martial artist had ever reached. He screams with ecstatic joy, "I saw it with my own eyes!" leaving Seo Yun-hyun completely stunned by the shocking revelation. With a triumphant roar, Kim Yong-hun unleashes a massive sphere of blue energy, which Yun-hun calls Gang Chi. He tells stunned Seo Eun-hyun that this is the power he risked his life and burned his very soul to achieve, the power that allowed him to tear the arm off a final stage cultivator. The energy blast is so immense that it completely obliterates the landscape for miles. As the dust settles, Yong Hun shouts with pure joy, telling Seo Eun-hyun that this new power is the pinnacle he sought his entire life, a technique that surpasses all known martial arts. He reveals he traveled hundreds of miles in his dying state just to show his friend and entrust his legacy to him. Seo Eun-hyun, however, is having a very different emotional reaction. He stares blankly at the smoldering crater where his 3-story mansion used to be, thinking to himself, "My house." All the money he had earned from 50 years of non-stop fighting was gone in an instant. For a brief moment, pure rage surges through him, but he quickly calms himself to analyze the incredible power his friend just displayed. He notices that the Gangchi was condensed with immense sword force, creating a truly unbelievable level of strength. But the effort has taken its final toll. Kim Yong-hun begins to fall from the sky with Seo Eun-hyun, of course, his life fading. Seo Eun-hyun rushes to catch him. As he holds his dying friend, Kim Yong-hun uses his last breaths to tell him to remember the 9 stances, which contain the essence of all his knowledge, and begs him to pass on his martial arts. Just as Seo Eun-hyun is pleading with him to save his energy, a new figure appears, the cultivator who was chasing them. The cultivator, a member of the Celestial clan, arrogantly tells Seo Eun-hyun to step aside so he can punish the extreme monster, Kim Yong-hun's nickname among cultivators. When Seo Eun-hyun refuses to move, takes the dying Yong-hun on his back and starts running. The cultivator is amused and decides to have some fun. He summons a horde of grotesque, reanimated corpses known as Jiangshi to attack them. What follows is a desperate, grueling chase. Seo Eun-hyun is forced to carry his armless, dying friend on his back while fleeing the tireless undead. He hilariously complains to himself, grumbling that Yong Hun, who has regenerative powers, should be the one carrying him. For 3 days and 3 nights, he runs without rest, pushing his body to its absolute limit until he is finally cornered at the edge of a high cliff. The cultivator reappears, impressed that a mere mortal could hold out for so long. He taunts Seo Yun-hyun, pointing out that Yong Hun is already dead and that he could have escaped if he had just dropped the corpse, since all the cultivator wants is the head. Seo Yun-hyun looks down at his friend's lifeless body and begins to laugh softly. He tells the cultivator that everything he has, his techniques, his strength, his very survival, he owes to Yong Hun, who was not only his friend but his master. With unwavering resolve, he declares, "If you want to take my master's head, you'll have to take my head first." The cultivator scoffs at his loyalty. Deciding to show him a fate worse than death, he uses his dark powers. But his attention was still on Yong Hun's body, restraining it. To Seo Yun-hyun's horror, the cultivator reanimates his friend's corpse, turning the legendary martial artist into a mindless puppet. In a final act of unimaginable cruelty, the cultivator gives the zombified Yong Hun a chilling order: "Kill the one you call your disciple with your own hands." Forced to fight the reanimated corpse of his dearest friend, Seo Yun-hyun quickly realizes that while the zombie can't use its original martial arts, it's been infused with the cultivator's immense power, making it incredibly fast and strong. As an old man, Seo Yun-hyun knows he can't hold out for long. With a heavy heart, he apologizes to his deceased master, knowing he has no choice but to destroy the body to end the horrific display. He prepares a special technique, the Severing Mountain Sword Arts 21st Strike Heavenly Lake. This triggers a flashback to a conversation between them. They discussed why this particular move was named after a lake when all the others were named after mountains. They concluded that this name reminds them of a place from their shared homeland of Korea. The technique is uniquely suited for Seo Yun-hyun. Using his profound medical knowledge, it allows him to absorb an opponent's energy through their meridian points and trap it within his own sword. Back in the present, he successfully executes the move, absorbing the dark energy powering the zombie. Realizing that the cultivator could simply reanimate the corpse again if it's left intact, he decides he must obliterate it completely. He channels the stolen power through his sword and unleashes all the forms of the Severing Mountain Sword Arts in one massive, continuous barrage. The furious cultivator pumps even more power into the zombie, making it charge forward with unstoppable force. Knowing his aged body can't possibly dodge the attack, Seo Yun-hyun makes a final, heroic decision. Thinking to himself that his lifespan is nearly over anyway, he chooses to stand his ground and take the blow, ensuring his master's body will be destroyed in the clash and can no longer be desecrated. But in that moment, facing certain death, something inside him snaps. Refusing to die just yet, he pushes his mind beyond its absolute limits, forcing it to process every single sensory detail of his surroundings. The space, the sound, the smell of blood, the temperature, until it feels like his brain is about to burst. And then, it does. He breaks through a mental barrier, and the world seems to slow to a crawl. In this new state of heightened perception, he effortlessly sidesteps the zombie's attack and, in a single fluid motion, decapitates the corpse. As he looks upon the severed head of his master, he sees that it appears to be smiling. In that profound moment, he finally understands. He, the fool abandoned by the heavens, and Yong Hun, the genius blessed by them, were always so alike because they were both just men desperately struggling against the fates given to them. Using this new power, he cuts the zombie in pieces. An inner voice asks if he intends for it to end like this. With renewed purpose, he declares, of course not. He gathers all his remaining energy and unleashes one last, devastating technique, Endless Mountains. The attack completely pulverizes his master's remains, leaving nothing but dust. His task complete, Seo Yun-hyun looks upon the empty space where his master's body once was. "May you rest in peace, master," he says quietly. Doing that, he also falls from the cliff. With that, his own life, a life of persistent challenge and endless struggle, comes to a peaceful conclusion, having finally reached the new state of being he had so longed for. However, the story's not ending here. It continues with a close-up of an eye snapping open. It's Seo Yun-hyun, and the first thing he realizes is that he has once again regressed in time. This marks the start of his fourth life. Lying in a grassy field, he slowly clenches his fist, a wave of pure, unadulterated joy washing over him. He screams in triumph, "I finally reached it. I've reached the pinnacle." His celebration is cut short when Yong Hun again lunges at him, furious. But something is different. Seo Yun-hyun closes his eyes, yet he effortlessly dodges the attack. He realizes he can see his attacker's every move with perfect clarity, even without looking. He reflects on this incredible new ability. In his past life, he could dodge attacks by predicting his opponent's movements based on decades of hard-earned experience. But this is on a completely different level. This isn't prediction, it's precognition. He can literally see the future, a few seconds at a time. This, he understands, is the true power of a master at the pinnacle. His new sight manifests as colored lines. A red line shows him the exact path of an opponent's attack, while a blue line reveals the perfect path for his own counterattack, highlighting his enemy's weak points. The power gap between him and his colleague is so vast that he sees dozens of blue lines, meaning he has countless opportunities to strike. However, this amazing power comes with a price. After just a few moments of using it, he's hit with a blinding headache and a nosebleed, as if his brain is overloading. He knocks out the Yong Hun quickly. His colleagues rush over, worried. After calming everyone down, he leads them to a nearby cave for safety, makes a fire, and feeds them some berries he finds. Once they are asleep, he slips out into the night to explore his new power. He now understands what Kim Yong-hun meant in his past life when he called the constant sharpening of the five senses an imitation of the pinnacle. His old method was about using his senses to calculate and predict. This new sight is the real deal, a true glimpse into the future. He is in awe of its power. He practices and cuts through every leaf in the air. It was morning already, filled with a new sense of purpose, he declares. Now I too am the master at the pinnacle. The headache returns, but he finds a patch of same rare and powerful yellow bamboo roots. After eating some and practicing a breathing technique, he finds he can use his sight for up to an hour and a half before the pain becomes too much. Back in the cave, he believes that he carries all the priceless knowledge his Yong Hun gave him in his previous life. He plans to share this knowledge with the Kim Yong Hun of this era, which will make him even stronger than before. A stronger master in turn can teach him even more, helping him finally surpass his limits. He knows that as a man with no natural talent, his only path forward is through endless, grueling training. His first objective is to train his brain to withstand the pain of using his new sight. His ultimate goal is to reach a legendary state beyond even the one he has just attained, the pinnacle of the pinnacle, a state known as the three flowers gather at the crown. With a new fire in his eyes, he sets off, ready to begin his journey once more. Sometime later, as expected from his previous life, the same mystical fox that rules the forest appears before Seo Yun-hun and his colleagues. Curious about the limits of his new power, he decides to test his sight on the creature. The moment he activates it, his vision is flooded with an overwhelming, suffocating crimson light, but this wasn't the red light, it was many red strings. He is completely paralyzed by the sheer power radiating from the fox and instantly realizes, I can't win. And as expected, the fox took his arm. A few days later, the cultivators return to take his colleagues away. Once again, when he uses his sight on them, the world turns completely red from the red strings. He understands now the immense, insurmountable gap between a martial artist, even a peak master like himself, and a cultivator. He realizes that he wouldn't stand a chance against even the weakest among them. But when Seo Hwell came, he took advantage of a brief moment while greeting the Dragon King of the Sea, who had come to fetch one of his colleagues. Seo Enyan explains the crimson domain he witnessed, and the Dragon King gives him a crucial piece of information. He explains that cultivators possess an ability called Shi, which is a form of consciousness or awareness that they can project outward, creating a domain around them that they completely control and see. This is the source of the red light. Soon after, the hunchbacked freak from his previous life appears again and, without warning, shoves both Seo Eun-hun and Yong Hun into a spatial rift. But this time, they were plunged into a deep body of water. He quickly swimmed and took Yong Hun to a nearby sandy beach. Yong Hun is completely disoriented, but Seo Eun-hun, drawing on his past life's memories, quickly recognizes their location as Gyedu Lake in the Yon Kingdom. He spots a large buildings across the water and remembers it well. He tells Yong Hun that he will swim across to borrow some clothes and food. However, he knows exactly what the building is, a bandit hideout. He recalls fighting them in a past life. Their leader was a first-class master, and while the rest were not very skilled, they were numerous and fought dirty, coating their blades with poison. When Seo Yun-hun emerges from the water, he is immediately confronted by the bandits. One of them charges at him, but Seo Yun-hun effortlessly disarms the man and takes his weapon. With a cold look in his eyes, he asks one of the bandits how many people he has killed. The man proudly boasts that he's personally sent over 50 people to their graves. With that, Seo Yun-hun makes a chilling declaration to the entire camp. Anyone who has ever taken a life must now face him. Later, inside the main house, where the bandits captured women and were using them to their own good, he walks calmly into the main hall, interrupting the bandits' drinking and carousing. The leader, a large man sitting in a tigerskin chair, orders his men to attack the intruder. Holding the bloody wooden club, Seo Yun-hun simply says, "No need to even ask. You all have to die." The scene cuts to the aftermath of a complete massacre. The bandit leader is the only one left alive, begging for his life. Seo Yun-hun has only one question for him. How long have I been here? The terrified leader tells him it's been about 15 minutes. Seo Yun-hun reflects on this, remembering that in his past life, it took him an entire day of setting fires and using a poisoned sword to defeat them. This time, he wiped them out in minutes with nothing but a wooden stick. After killing the leader, who tries to bargain for his life with the location of his hidden treasure, Seo Yun-hun calmly walks over to the stash, having already known where it was. He frees the bandits' captives, who fall to their knees in gratitude, hailing him as a great hero. One of them asks for his name or epithet so they can properly honor him and repay the favor. After a thoughtful pause, Seo Yun-hun introduces himself not by his old name, but by a new, powerful epithet that reflects his new state of being. With a confident smile, he declares, "Limitless Battle Demon. That is my name." Later, Seo Yun-hyun and Yong Hun again settled into their new life. Using the money they took from the bandits, they buy a manor in Changho Castle. Just as he did in his previous lives, Seo Yun-hyun takes on the role of a mentor, teaching the naturally gifted Kim Yong-hun both literacy and martial arts. About 2 months later, Seo Yun-hyun watches his friend train and is once again struck by his incredible talent. He finds it almost disheartening how quickly Kim Yong-hun masters everything, reflecting on how geniuses like him can reach the highest levels of power with just a little guidance. Sure enough, before he has even fully mastered reading and writing, Kim Yong-hun breaks through to the Three Blossoms Crown Peak, a realm that takes most martial artists a lifetime to achieve. Seo Yun-hyun congratulates him, but this time it's a whole different story. In his past lives, he was always the student, looking up at his Yong Hun. But now, having already reached the peak realm himself, he sees this as a unique opportunity. For the first time, they are on somewhat equal footing. He challenges Kim Yong-hun to a proper duel. A competitive fire ignites within Seo Yun-hyun. He knows this is his one and only chance to ever defeat his friend in his lifetime. Kim Yong-hun's talent is so monstrous that he will soon surpass him and become completely untouchable. Pushing his new sight to its limits, he uses his decades of raw combat experience to break his friend's stance and gain the upper hand. However, just as victory seems within his grasp, Kim Yong-hun unleashes the true power of his new realm. Faced with an overwhelming attack that he knows he cannot survive head-on, Seo Yun-hyun is forced to use a powerful defensive technique, Empty Valley Echo, to withstand the blow. The duel ends with Kim Yong-hun admitting defeat, not because he was overpowered, but because his weapon broke, a disgrace for a martial artist. Though he technically won, Seo Yun-hyun feels a bittersweet sense of finality. He knows he will never be able to win against his Yong Hun again. As a gift, he gives Yong Hun a mysterious martial arts manual he acquired, one that can only be understood by those who have reached the Three Blossoms Crown Peak. Maybe this manual was also given by Yong Hun in past life. 4 months later, Seo Yun-hyun returns from a bounty hunt to find Kim Yong-hun gone. Suddenly, his friend appears behind him, having already mastered a stealth technique from the book that he shouldn't have been able to use for years. Kim Yong-hun is ecstatic about the manual and wants to travel the martial world to test his new skills, inviting Seo Yun-hyun to come along. Seo Yun-hyun refuses, saying he needs to stabilize his own power first, but he has an ulterior motive. He tells his Yong Hun that he plans to join the imperial court, which could be useful to them in the future. In truth, he remembers from his past life as a strategist that the royal family of the Yan Kingdom is secretly entangled with the cultivators. He plans to infiltrate the government to learn the truth. The next 5 years pass in a blur. Seo Yun-hyun joins the military, quickly rises to the rank of general thanks to his martial prowess, and then successfully joins the elite Imperial Guard. After 4 months of intense training in stealth and espionage, the day finally comes for him to be deployed as one of the Emperor's personal bodyguards. As he stands before the throne for the first time, he makes a shocking discovery that changes everything. Using his sight, he looks at the ruler of the Yan Kingdom and realizes the horrifying truth: the Emperor is a cultivator. In fact, he soon learns that nearly the entire imperial family are cultivators, all born with a spiritual root that allows them to use the special perception known as Shi. However, he notes that none of them seem particularly powerful. They are all far weaker than the mystical fox he encountered in the forest. Still, they are cultivators, and he wonders why they would need a martial artist like him for protection. He concludes that the Emperor, despite being stronger than the entire Shadow Guard combined, simply can't be bothered to deal with the constant assassination attempts himself, and the attempts are indeed constant. Almost every night, assassins try to kill the Emperor, and every night, Seo Yun-hyun is there to fight them off. This goes on for 5 long years. During this time, his old friend, Kim Yong-hun, rises to become the leader of the prestigious martial alliance. Though their official duties keep them apart, they manage to meet in secret to catch up over drinks. During one of these meetings, Seo Yun-hyun observes his friend's power and is stunned. The red line that signifies an opponent's intent in Seo Yun-hyun's sight expands into a full-blown domain, exactly like a cultivator's shik. He realizes that this is the next level of power for a martial artist, a realm known as Ogi Joan, and that it's the key to mastering the legendary sword threads technique. This new state of being also brings about a physical transformation. Yong Hun has regained his youth again, appearing as a young man once again. Seo Yun-hyun feels a pang of regret knowing that if he had reached a higher level himself, he could have learned so much more from observing his friend's breakthrough. Yong Hun confirms that within his new domain, he feels he could fight on even terms with low-level cultivators. This conversation gives Seo Yun-hyun a crucial insight. The realm of Ogi Joan allows a martial artist to cultivate their power in a way similar to a cultivator. The gap between a peak master and a master of Ogi Joan is as vast as the gap between a beginner and a peak master. The knowledge he gains from this encounter will be invaluable for his own future progress. A few days later, back at the palace, another assassin attacks at night. This time, however, Seo Yun-hyun is distracted. He was fighting a peak master assassin, but his mind is still reeling from what he learned from his friend. He begins to question his fundamental understanding of his own power. He had always believed that sword chi was simply the ultimate expression of his sword art, a fusion of his technique and his body pushed to its absolute limit. But if that were true, then even the mindless Jiangshi puppets, zombies, should be able to use it if they learn the right moves. He realizes that sword chi is not just technique. Its true core is the martial artist's will. The red and blue lines he sees are not just attack paths, they are the physical manifestation of his and his opponent's intent. The moment he understands this, a strange sensation surges through his sword, as if it has become a living extension of his own body. He realizes he can pour his sword intent into the lines of his sight, manifesting them into tangible reality. This is the secret to creating sword threads, and after some fight he was able to defeat the assassin, who was a girl. This one, however, is a familiar face, one of the Emperor's newest handmaidens. He's impressed by her skill. She's already a peak master at such a young age. The assassin recognizes him too, calling him by his old moniker, the Infinite Fighting Monster. 10 years ago, he saved the village from bandits. She tells him a tragic story about how her talented younger sibling was a victim of the very emperor he protects. As she tries to convince him that the people of the kingdom are suffering under the emperor's rule, more guards appear. But Seo Yun-hyun is bound by his duty. He apologizes, explaining that for a member of the Shadow Guard, even hesitating to kill an assassin is a crime. With a heavy heart, he strikes her down. After he and his comrades clean up the bodies, he notes that the Emperor never even stirs in his chambers, which are protected by powerful soundproofing spells. It's an open secret among the guards that their ruler is a cultivator, and this just confirms it. Life in the palace is a strange contradiction. While assassination attempts are a nightly occurrence, the Yan Kingdom itself is thriving. There are few beggars or bandits, and the nation seems peaceful. This leaves Seo Yun-hyun wondering who could possibly want the Emperor dead. 10 years have passed. Seo Yun-hyun has earned the Emperor's complete trust, using his position to secretly gather intelligence on the mysterious cultivator clans. One day, while reviewing government documents, he stumbles upon a horrifying clue. A report mentions that the number of poor people, orphans, and bandits has drastically decreased, but it offers no explanation as to how. There was no war, no famine, and no major relief effort. He comes to a chilling conclusion. The Emperor is having the poor quietly erased. He decides this mystery is too big for him to solve alone. He arranges a meeting with his old friend Yong Hun, who is just retiring from his post as the leader of the Murim Alliance. Having finally mastered all the techniques from the special manual, Yong Hun is now setting out to find the cultivators himself. Seo Yun-hyun shares all the information he's gathered, including the locations of suspected cultivator activity, hoping his friend can uncover the truth. Back at the palace, things take a deadly turn. The usual assassins have been replaced by a far more dangerous foe, a cultivator. This new enemy is arrogant and powerful, casually revealing that all the previous peak master assassins were only equivalent to a key refining stage 1 cultivator. He, on the other hand, is at stage 2. He unleashes a devastating fire attack on the guards. Just as the guards incinerated, Seo Yun-hyun steps in and blocks the attack with his sword. The cultivator is shocked and infuriated that a mere worm would dare to stand against him. The other Imperial guards are trapped outside a magical barrier, unable to help. Inside, Seo Yun-hyun knows he needs just 1 second to evolve his sword threads into a true sword aura to have a chance. The cultivator, however, just laughs, telling him it's impossible for a martial artist to break his defensive spell. Seo Yun-hyun, however, broke it and was able to scratch a cultivator. The desperate attempt at forming a sword aura sends Seo Yun-hyun flying, badly injured. The cultivator, enraged that a worm dared to challenge him, decides to stop toying with him and prepares to deliver a finishing blow. He steps on Seo Yun-hyun and conjures sharp golden talismans to throw at Seo Yun-hyun. Just as the talismans are about to hit Seo Yun-hyun, his loyal comrades from the Shadow Guard yell, so the cultivator kills them instead because they were interfering. The cultivator is unimpressed, sneering at their futile resistance. Lying in a pool of his own blood, Seo Yun-hyun is filled with a quiet, burning determination. As the cultivator crushes his hand, he accepts that he is a worm compared to this powerful being, but he refuses to let the decades of grueling training and a lifetime of enduring hardship be for nothing. In a moment of pure grit, he tells himself, "Don't make me give up." He realizes the cultivator, despite his immense power, is just a talented kid who has never had to train his body or experience a real battle. He grabbed the cultivator, tripping him, and suddenly the cultivator's nose starts bleeding. How? Because his weapon was coated with the deadly poison. The plan worked. The cultivator panics, realizing he's been poisoned and desperately searching for an antidote. But Seo Yun-hyun gives him no time to recover. He tackles the cultivator, covering his mouth to stop him from chanting spells and pinning his hands to prevent him from forming hand seals. At the same time, the other guards, seeing the barrier is down, rush in to help. In his final moments, Seo Yun-hyun looks down at the terrified, beaten face of the cultivator. "You called me a worm," he says, "but in death you look no different."